The giant horse stood at the far edge of the auction ground, taller and broader than any other animal there. Its dark body was covered with old marks that showed it had lived a hard life. People stayed away from it and spoke in low voices because they felt uneasy near it. Some said the horse was savage and impossible to control. Others believed it was dangerous and not worth the trouble. No one dared to step too close for long. Handlers tried again and again to calm the horse using ropes and gentle words. The horse pulled back and stamped the ground with force. Dust rose into the air and made the people step farther away. Buyers looked at the animal and shook their heads. They came to the auction hoping to find something useful, not something that looked broken by the past. One by one they moved on, leaving the horse alone. The sun climbed higher as hours passed and the crowd thinned. The giant horse remained unsold and ignored. Its ears moved at every sound, but its body stayed tense. It had learned not to trust hands or voices. Every movement around it felt like a threat. The animal watched the world with eyes that had seen too much. Among the remaining people stood a man named Tom. He kept his distance from the noise and watched quietly. His clothes were plain and worn, and his face showed signs of tired years. Tom was a veteran who had returned from service carrying memories heavier than any bag. Sleep came hard to him and peace came even harder. He did not speak much and preferred silence. Tom had come to the auction without plans. He only wanted to pass time and distract his thoughts. Money was tight and hope felt smaller each day. He moved slowly across the ground until his eyes fell on the giant horse. Something inside him stopped and pulled him toward it. He felt a strange connection he could not explain. As Tom looked at the horse, he saw more than fear and strength. He saw loneliness and pain that felt familiar. The horse stood apart just like he often did. People judged it without knowing its story just like they judged him. That understanding settled deep in his chest. Tom took a few careful steps closer. The handlers shouted warnings and told him to stay away. He did not answer them or argue. He simply stopped and stood still. His hands stayed low and open and his breathing remained calm. He let the horse see him without pressure. The horse turned its head and locked eyes with him. Its body remained stiff and ready to react. The space between them felt heavy but quiet. Tom did not rush or reach out. He stayed where he was and allowed the moment to breathe. Time passed slowly as dust drifted in the warm air. The horse shifted its weight and stopped stomping. Its ears tilted forward and then back as it studied the man. Tom felt his heart beat strong but steady. Fear was there, but it did not control him. He spoke softly using simple words that carried no command. His voice was low and even like someone speaking to an old friend. The horse listened and did not pull away. The tension between them softened just enough to be noticed. People nearby began to whisper as they watched. No one had stood this close for this long before. The handlers held their breath and waited for something to go wrong. Nothing did. The horse did not move closer, but it did not move away either. After a while, Tom slowly stepped back. He did not turn his back on the horse. He kept his eyes gentle and respectful. When he finally stopped, the horse lowered its head slightly. It was not trust yet, but it was something new. The auction owner walked over and looked surprised. He asked Tom why he would risk standing near such an animal. Tom thought carefully before answering. He said some creatures act wild because they were hurt too many times. He said strength does not disappear just because pain exists. As the auction ended, people left with their purchases. Laughter and talk faded from the ground. The giant horse remained alone in its space. The handlers prepared to move it back to a holding area. They spoke about selling it cheaply or sending it away. Tom stood nearby counting the little money he carried. It was not enough for much of anything. Still, he could not make himself walk away. He felt something unfinished pulling at him. He returned to the horse one last time and stood quietly again. He looked into its eyes and spoke a name aloud. It was a simple name that carried meaning of calm and endurance. The horse flicked its ears and shifted forward one step. That small movement felt powerful to Tom. He felt his chest tighten and his eyes warm. For the first time in a long while he felt needed by something living. He did not know how the future would work or where they would go. As Tom turned to leave, the horse watched him closely. The sound of its new name lingered in the air. Both man and horse stood changed in a way no one else could see yet. The next morning arrived with soft light and cool air, and Tom returned to the auction ground before most people woke. The place felt empty and quiet without voices and noise. The giant horse stood in the holding area, still alone and alert. When Tom stepped closer, the horse lifted its head and watched him closely. There was no anger in its eyes, only caution and curiosity. The handlers arrived soon after and were surprised to see Tom again. They asked him why he came back when everyone else had left. Tom answered honestly and said he could not stop thinking about the horse. He said some connections do not follow logic or comfort. The handlers exchanged looks but allowed him to stand nearby. Tom spoke to the horse again using the same calm voice as before. He repeated the name he had chosen and let it rest in the air. The horse shifted its stance and breathed out slowly. That sound felt like a release of something heavy. Tom felt his shoulders relax without realizing it. The auction owner arrived and asked Tom what he planned to do. Tom explained he had little money but a lot of patience. He said he did not expect quick results or easy days. He only wanted a chance to try. The owner studied Tom for a long moment and then sighed. He said the horse had caused nothing but trouble and expense. He said maybe stubborn things belong together. A simple agreement was made that morning. The horse would go with Tom for a small price and a promise of care. Papers were signed and hands were shaken. Tom felt a mix of fear and relief as responsibility settled onto him. He wondered if he had made a mistake, but pushed the thought aside. Moving the horse was not easy. The animal resisted at first and pulled against the lead. Tom did not force it forward. He waited and spoke gently until the horse stopped fighting. Step by step they moved together. It took time and patience, but they reached the trailer without harm. The road to Tom's small place felt long and quiet. The trailer creaked with every turn. Tom drove slowly and checked the mirrors often. He talked aloud even though the horse could not answer. He spoke about the land and the open space waiting ahead. When they arrived, the sun was already lowering. The land was simple with a small shelter and open field. Tom opened the trailer and stepped back. The horse hesitated and scanned the area. After a long pause, it stepped down carefully. The ground felt different here and the air smelled clean. The first days passed slowly and carefully. Tom kept distance and allowed the horse to explore on its own. He made sure food and water were always ready. He stayed nearby without pressure. The horse watched him constantly and learned his patterns. At night Tom slept lightly and listened to the sounds outside. The horse moved and breathed in the dark. Those sounds felt grounding and steady. Tom realized he was sleeping better than he had in years. Trust did not come quickly. Some days the horse allowed Tom closer. Other days it stayed far away. Tom accepted both without frustration. He understood healing did not move in straight lines. Each small step mattered. One afternoon, a loud noise from the road startled the horse. It reared and pulled back hard. Tom stayed calm and spoke softly. He did not chase or shout. Slowly the horse settled and lowered its head. That moment built something strong between them. Tom began gentle work with the horse using slow movements and clear signals. He brushed its coat and cleaned old marks with care. The horse stood still longer each time. Its body slowly released tension it had held for years. As days turned into weeks, the horse changed. Its eyes softened and its stance became relaxed. It followed Tom at a distance without being asked. That quiet choice meant more than any command. Tom also changed without noticing at first. He stood taller and moved with purpose. His thoughts felt less heavy. The routine of care gave his days meaning. The past still lived in him, but it no longer controlled him. Neighbors began to notice the giant horse in the field. Some came by to look from afar. They spoke in surprise and disbelief. They asked how Tom managed such an animal. Tom answered simply and said patience does more than force. One evening as the sky turned orange, Tom sat on a fence and watched the horse graze. The horse walked over and stood nearby. It did not touch him but stayed close. Tom smiled quietly and felt something warm inside. That night Tom spoke the horse's name again under the stars. The horse lifted its head and listened. In that shared silence both felt safer than before. The bond between them was growing stronger, even without words. Tom knew challenges still waited ahead. He knew fear could return at any moment. But he also knew he was no longer facing things alone. The giant horse was no longer savage or refused. It was becoming something new just like him. The weeks continued to pass and the bond between Tom and the giant horse grew stronger each day. The horse began to greet Tom at the fence every morning without fear. Its steps were calmer and its breathing steady. Tom noticed how the animal no longer watched every movement as a threat. Trust was slowly taking root. Tom started leading the horse around the field with gentle guidance. He used slow steps and soft signals. The horse followed without pulling away. Each walk felt like a quiet conversation between them. Tom felt proud but remained patient. One afternoon dark clouds rolled across the sky and thunder echoed in the distance. The horse grew uneasy and paced the ground. Storms had always frightened it. Tom stayed nearby and spoke calmly. He stood firm and let the horse circle him. The thunder grew louder and rain began to fall. The horse trembled and snorted. Tom did not move away. He stayed present and steady. Slowly the horse came closer and stood beside him. That moment marked a deep shift in trust. As the storm passed, the horse remained calm. Tom felt his own fears loosen inside him. He realized that helping the horse face fear helped him face his own. Both carried past pain and both were learning release. Days later Tom attempted riding for the first time. He moved carefully and kept his weight light. The horse tensed but did not resist. Tom spoke gently and waited. After a moment the horse stood still. They moved together slowly and safely. The first ride was short and quiet. Tom guided the horse across the field at an easy pace. He felt the strength beneath him and the calm growing between them. When he dismounted, both stood breathing evenly. News of the giant horse spread through nearby land. People came to watch from a distance. They remembered the stories of the savage animal from the auction. What they saw now surprised them. The horse moved with grace and control. Some neighbors warned Tom to be careful. They said such animals could turn without warning. Tom listened respectfully but trusted what he had built. He believed understanding was stronger than fear. One day a local group organized a small event nearby. Horses and riders gathered to train and socialize. Tom hesitated but decided to attend. He wanted to test their progress and give the horse a chance to experience the world. At the gathering the giant horse drew many stares. Some people stepped back while others whispered. Tom stayed calm and focused. The horse sensed the tension and stayed close. Suddenly a loud sound rang out from metal equipment nearby. The horse jumped and pulled forward. People gasped and moved away. Tom held firm and spoke the horse's name clearly. He guided it gently away from the noise. The horse slowed and listened. It lowered its head and followed Tom. The crowd watched in silence as control returned. What could have ended badly passed safely. That moment changed how people saw both of them. Afterwards some approached Tom with curiosity. They asked how he managed such a horse. Tom explained that patience and respect mattered more than strength. He said healing takes time and understanding. As evening came, Tom returned home feeling tired but fulfilled. The horse walked calmly beside him. That night Tom rested peacefully knowing progress had been made. Over time Tom began to open up more to people around him. Caring for the horse gave him confidence again. He spoke more freely and smiled more often. The land felt alive again. The horse continued to grow calmer and stronger. Its coat shone and its posture relaxed. It no longer carried the weight of constant defense. It had a purpose now and a place. One evening Tom sat near the field watching the sun sink low. The horse stood beside him quietly. Tom placed a hand on its side and felt warmth and trust. He thought about the past and how far he had come. He knew struggles still existed, but he also knew he was capable again. The horse had helped him remember strength within himself. The giant horse lifted its head and breathed calmly. It was no longer the refused animal from the auction. It was a partner and companion. As darkness settled, Tom whispered thanks into the night. He did not know what the future held, but he knew he would face it with courage and patience. Together they stood strong and steady. Both had found healing through trust and care. What once seemed impossible had become real through kindness and persistence. The final change came slowly and quietly without warning. Tom noticed it one morning when the giant horse waited for him at the gate without hesitation. Its posture was relaxed and its eyes were calm. There was no fear left in its stance. It stood like it belonged there fully and completely. Tom opened the gate, and the horse stepped forward on its own. That simple action filled Tom with deep emotion. He remembered the first day when the animal would not allow anyone near. Now it chose him freely. That choice meant more than words. Life settled into a steady rhythm. Tom woke early and worked the land with purpose. The horse followed him across the field and responded to gentle guidance. They moved like a team without force or struggle. Each day felt meaningful. People from nearby areas began to visit more often. Some brought children and others brought curiosity. They wanted to see the horse they once feared. What they saw was calm strength and quiet trust. The stories about the savage animal slowly faded. One afternoon a local trainer visited after hearing about the horse. He expected chaos and danger. Instead he saw patience and balance. He watched Tom work with the horse and nodded with respect. He admitted he had never seen such a change without harsh control. The trainer offered Tom an opportunity to show the horse at a small local gathering. Not for competition but for example. Tom hesitated and thought carefully. He wanted to protect the horse from pressure. After reflection he agreed on one condition: that everything would move at their pace. The day of the gathering arrived with clear skies. Tom and the horse traveled together calmly. When they arrived, people gathered quietly. There was no loud noise or rush. The horse sensed the calm and stayed relaxed. Tom guided the horse through simple movements. Walking, stopping, turning, and standing still. Each motion was smooth and confident. The crowd watched closely and felt the quiet power of trust between them. When the demonstration ended, the people applauded softly. Not out of excitement but respect. Many felt moved by what they saw. Some wiped their eyes without knowing why. The connection between man and horse spoke deeply. Afterwards several people approached Tom. Some asked for advice and others shared their own struggles. Tom listened patiently and spoke honestly. He said healing does not come from force but from understanding and time. That evening Tom returned home with the horse and felt complete peace. The land welcomed them back with quiet wind and fading light. Tom rested against the fence and breathed deeply. He realized the horse had saved him as much as he had saved the horse. The routine, the responsibility, and the trust had brought him back to himself. The weight he carried no longer controlled his days. The horse stood beside him strong and calm. Its scars were still there, but they no longer defined it. They were part of its story, not its future. As the seasons changed, the bond remained unbroken. Tom continued to work and grow. The horse remained his steady partner. Together they became symbols of second chances. People no longer spoke of the refused horse or the struggling veteran. They spoke of strength, patience, and quiet courage. The story spread not through noise but through example. One night under a sky full of stars, Tom spoke the horse name again softly. The horse listened and stayed close. In that silence there was no fear or regret. Tom knew life would still bring challenges. But he also knew he could face them. He had learned trust again through another living soul. The giant horse lowered its head and breathed steadily. It had found safety and purpose. It was no longer alone. Together they stood on the land they now shared. Two lives once broken, now whole through care and patience. The path ahead was open and steady. Their story did not end there. It continued quietly each day in simple moments. And that was enough.